All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are going to now get into talking about the other New York team, and that is the Giants and their loss to the Carolina Panthers. And yeah, that I want to say I was surprised, but I mean, you can't really say that. The Giants, they're not a good football team. Now, I thought that they should have beaten the Panthers, and they did have a lot of missed opportunities that, they could have capitalized on, and, maybe we're having a different conversation, but no, they ended up losing the game. You had a missed field goal by Graham Gano, who came back after, missing a period of time with an injury, but he missed a field goal. The Giants were driving at one point, and Jones has his pass intercepted. He had a couple of interceptions in this game. One of them was tipped, and then that got picked off. And then you had another one, which I don't know what happened, but he throws it to Tyrone Tracy, and it somehow ends up with the Panthers. The ball ends up getting picked off there. So I don't know what happened on that one. And then you go to overtime, and the Giants get the ball to start overtime. And Tyrone Tracy fumbles on the very first play. And the Panthers kick a field goal to win the game. And I feel so bad for Tyrone Tracy because he was, they said he was in tears at the end of the game. And I think he is going to be a very good player for this team the way he looks right now. The Giants' rookie draft class has been solid this year. So, again, there is pieces to build off of. But it's just, they're at 2-8 right now. And it's just, there were a lot of, I just brought up some plays that define the Giants season. Let's talk about another play. So it's 3rd and 1, and the Giants do a flea flicker. And Daniel Jones has two guys open. And he doesn't pull the trigger. He doesn't throw it. And he ends up getting sacked. It's just, it has been a rough year. And I look at it and I say to myself, how does this team have any wins? How did they go? Like the Browns, I understand. But they also didn't score any points in the second half in that game. And Deshaun Watson was still playing quarterback. Like if Jameis is playing quarterback, they probably lose that game. How did they win in Seattle? How did they win that game? How did this team put up 29 points in Seattle? Now, the Giants did block a field goal, so if the Seahawks make that, they go into overtime, and who knows what happens. But I still don't understand how they won that game. I really don't. And now, who knows what's going to happen? Are they going to bench Daniel Jones? Joe Shane, I think, is going to be speaking to the media today, so I'm curious to see what he says. But it's just been it's been an awful season for them. I said 7 wins. It's funny how things change. Because week 1, I said I don't know how this team's going to win that many games. Then they beat Seattle, and I'm like, you know what? If they play like that, maybe you win some games. Now we're back to how are they going to win any games? But that's the NFL season. It's a roller coaster. But this could be it for Daniel Jones. He might not play after this week, but who knows? Both teams started the game with punts, and then you had the Panthers going 8 plays, 90 yards. Bryce Young to Xavier Legette, he had 23 yards. Then another 26 to Chuba Hubbard. Then another 26 after that. Chuba Hubbard had a really good game. And then Bryce Young hit Sanders, the tight end, for a 5-yard touchdown, so that made it 7-0. Then it was 10-0 Panthers at one point. Giants then put together a nice drive. They got down to the Panthers' 25-yard line, and Graham Gano missed a 43-yarder. More punts. Daniel Jones then threw his first interception of the game. He was trying to hit Theo Johnson, but it got tipped up in the air, like I said, and it got intercepted by Xavier Woods. And that resulted in... Well, the Panthers didn't do anything with that, but yeah, it resulted in nothing. And then the Giants, just took a knee to go into the half. But then they opened up the drive. They went 10 plays, 65 yards down the field. And Tyrone Tracy from 32 yards out scores a touchdown to make it 10-7. But then the Panthers respond. They go 10 plays, 80 yards. And Chuba Hubbard from 1 yard out scores to make it 17-7. A couple more punts. Then the Giants made it 17-14. They went 13 plays, 96 yards, almost 7 minutes of time possession down the field. And Daniel Jones scores a rushing touchdown. Then the Panthers fumbled in the fourth quarter. Chuba Hubbard fumbles. And then the Giants get down to the 8. And, Jones hits Tyrone Tracy, but somehow Jewell wrestles it away from him. And it gets that's called an interception. Then more punts. Giants then eventually tied the game to make it 17-17. And then we went into overtime. The Giants got it, and Tyrone Tracy immediately fumbled, and the Panthers win the game. Panthers win the game. They ran some plays, and Eddie Pinheiro from 36 yards out scores. Daniel Jones went 22 of 37 for 190 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Tyrone Tracy had a good game. It's just the fumble. The fumble cost him, and also, I don't know how he didn't corral that pass by Jones, but he had 18 carries for 103 yards and a touchdown. Devin Singletary had 40 yards on the ground. Wan'Dale Robinson was their leading receiver, 5 receptions for 51 yards. Malik Neighbors had 6 for 50. He's been kind of quiet recently. Giants defense only 1 sack on the day. But yeah, Neighbors the last couple weeks. Only 9 for 59 against the Commanders. He had 7 for 71 against the Steelers, 4 for 41 against the Eagles. He did miss some time, of course, with the concussion, but also just the quarterback has not played well. Bryce Young went 15 to 25, 126 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Chuba Hubbard had himself a game, 28 carries, 153 yards, and a touchdown. Panthers almost had 200 yards rushing in this game. The Giants' run defense had no answers for the Panthers' ground game. Jalen Coker was their leading receiver, 3 receptions for 41 yards. Xavier Legette had 3 for 40. I almost said DJ Moore. David Moore, 2 for 18. Chuba Hubbard had 4 for 16. And like I said, Hubbard had a fumble in this game. Panthers defense, a couple of sacks. But the Giants now, if the season were to end today, they would have the number 1 overall pick. And for Giant fans, that's what they're hoping for. They're hoping that they can get that pick and, take their quarterback. But the problem I have is, who is going to be making that selection? Like, is Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, are they going to be back next year? Because if the Giants win 2 games, it's hard for me to say that they will be back. Or is at least one of them going to be back? Because I really do think that Brian Daboll is a good coach. It's just, Daniel Jones is not the answer. But it seems like there's a lot more issues, though, besides the quarterback. The quarterback, I think, is the biggest issue. I think if they had a better quarterback in place, they would not be 2-8 right now. They would have a better record. But, what happened to the defense? They got gashed by Chuba Hubbard. And Chuba Hubbard's been good this year. So I don't want to, diminish what he's done. But I've looked at this Giants defense as being a good unit. And they have showed up in games. But, I don't know. Maybe they're giving up. Maybe they're saying, this is a lost year. I don't know. I don't want to make assumptions, but it's a possibility. Look at what happened with Ben McAdoo in 2017. You saw players blatantly missing tackles. Now, I'm not saying that's what this defense is doing, but still, the Giants have seen this in the past where there's been a lack of effort. But, hey, the Panthers, look, they're on a 2-game winning streak. So, they are not looked at as the worst team in football. I would say, and my camera just turned off, the team right now that is the worst team in football is the New York Giants. And I would not have said that before the year started. I wouldn't. I did not look at the Giants as being the worst team in football. I thought they would have put together a little bit of a better effort than what we've been seeing. But not the case. They right now, record-wise, they are the worst team in football. And that's probably what's going to end up happening. They're going to finish with the worst record, and honestly, yeah, I mean, I am kind of hoping that they do get the number 1 overall pick, just because I would like to see them try to draft. I would like to see Brian Dable and Joe Schoen get the guy that they want, and then if that doesn't work out, then they'll be gone. That's really how I look at it. But then again, you could say, well, they drafted Daniel Jones. Or they drafted Daniel Jones. They paid Daniel Jones. They could have easily just moved off of him and started over. But no, they win that playoff game against the Vikings, and my camera continues to act up. And they were like, all right, we'll give him a shot. We'll give him another shot. And I thought it was smart that they put in that out in the contract in case, it doesn't work out, and it just hasn't. So, yeah, the New York football in general is just not in a good place. It's not. It's not in a good place. And I don't know how they're going to get out of it. I mean, look at the Commanders. It basically took them 1 year, and they're a team that's going to be competing for a division title. And they got a big game coming up on Thursday against the Eagles. And the Giants, they've just been... They're another team that's just been going in circles. They have not been able to get out of it. And, again, I thought when, we watched Hard Knocks over the summer, that, okay, they have an idea of what they're doing. They're building an offensive line. They're building a defensive line. They're giving Daniel Jones a chance, one last chance. And it just... I didn't expect 2 wins at this point. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more. But it's not going to happen. Daniel Jones has really regressed. Like, he already was not, an above-average quarterback, but he's definitely I mean, he was average. And it's crazy that his ceiling was his rookie year. 24 touchdowns to 12 picks. When they made the playoffs, yeah, he had a lot of rushing touchdowns. What did he only have? He only had 15 touchdown passes. I just was never... I was never that high on Daniel Jones. I always thought, he's okay, but I definitely would prefer if maybe they had someone else. And that could be the case here. Because if the Giants have, a top 3 pick, which they definitely are, they're going to draft a quarterback. And they're going to hit that reset button. And I still do believe that they have the pieces. They do have, well, not the pieces, but they have pieces that they could build around. You got the guys on the defensive line. You got Malik Neighbors. Tyrone Tracy, again, looks like he's going to be a good player. I know he had the fumble. Theo Johnson, I think, the tight end, he hasn't, they started to use him. He actually hasn't done bad. He's starting to, become more of a, have more of a role. You have Wan'Dale Robinson. There are good players on this team. It's just they still need... I do think that you need to have another good draft and another good free agency, and then maybe next year, maybe this team will start to build towards something. I think you need to give Joe Schoen and Brian Dable 1 more year. Get your quarterback, get the quarterback that they want, and then see what happens. And if not, well, I don't know. But it's possible Dable's gone. But we'll see. But let me know what you guys think about this game. What were your takeaways from it? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our final break of the show. And then when we come back, we will talk about the Saints pulling off the upset against the Falcons. So make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.